At last, we return to northwestern Predecessors. This is the big one, folks. We've arrived at the Knapford and Ulfstead Railway. We're also not going to only cover the knur, we're going to be covering a total of 5 railways in this video. This is because they're all heavily interconnected. They either started out as the knur or were absorbed into it at some point. So they'll all be in this one video. The railways we'll be covering are as follows. The Knapford and Ulfstead Railway. The tramway is operated by the Sodor Tramway Company. In this case, there were 2 of them. The Knapford, Aylesborough, and Ulfstead Railway. And the Ttte, Wellsworth, and Brendam Light Railway. These are all railways that have detailed yet pretty brief histories in the Portiverse, so they're all going to be in this video. And we will start at the beginning, with the Knapford and Ulfstead Railway. Before I continue, I just want to make it known that none of the information in this video, or in this series at large, is meant to cover any official lore or any information from the official universes of Thomas Tank Engine. It's all just my sort of headcanon, or as I like to call it, the Portiverse. So take everything you hear in this video with a grain of salt. Or you can use it in your own headcanon, go nuts. Pretty cool. Now that I got that out of the way, let's dive into the history of the Knapford and Ulfstead Railway. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a drink, maybe even a blanket, and enjoy the show. Our story begins in 1895, when the knur officially opened to the public. The railway runs from the harbor at Knapford all the way up to the mountainy village of Ulfstead. At this time, the railway served just a coal mine, a stone quarry, and a gold mine, which was joint operated by the Mid-Sodor Railway. And Bertram was the MSR shunter for this gold mine, and he remained there for a good amount of years. At this time, the railway operated a handful of vertical boiler coffee pot engines, one of which was named Glyn. Glyn, like the rest of the engines on this railway at the time, wore the railway's red livery with gold and black trim. These engines in livery will later be dubbed as the first generation of engines in livery colors. We'll cut away from the Knapford and Ulfstead for a little bit and focus on the Sodor Tramway Company. In 1903, the Tramway Company opens its first tramway north of the knur. This tramway will run from Callan to Arlesdale End, and this tramway will operate a handful of then new C-53 tram engines, one of which was indeed Toby. In 1905, the company will open a second tramway, which will operate within the powerhouse city of Great Waterton. This tramway was never connected to any railways on Sodor at this time, and it was mostly self-contained. Great Waterton was a city that was located northeast of Ulfstead, and resided alongside a river that will help the city grow. And the Sodor Tramway Company will also operate light river work alongside the tramway. At this time, Great Waterton was the largest city on Sodor, and was almost deemed the capital of the island as well. And this tramway will also operate a handful of C-53 tram engines. Except in this case, they will actually have the full skirt covering on the sides, as they run through cities with pedestrians. Sadly, these tramways will basically go non-existent within the next few years, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. So I'll come back to the Knapford Ulfstead Railway. In 1910, the knur rolls out its first ever class of house-built engines, the R46 class. These 060 tank engines would take over the workload for the coffee pots. One of these engines was indeed Thomas, who was actually the first one built. And this second generation of engines will wear either a Viridian livery with white lining for passenger work, or if you were a goods engine, you will receive a black livery with Viridian lining. 2 of the R46s were assigned to passenger duties, while the other 2 were assigned to goods work, Thomas being a passenger engine in this case. And the coffee pot engines, meanwhile, will be sidelined to almost exclusively shunting work. In 1912, the Sodor Tramway Company sells its larger tramway to the knur, and the knur takes on a new name after it buys it, the Knapford, Aylesborough, and Ulfstead Railway. The main R46 livery also sees some updates, most notably the brass domes. And the knur will build a new main line that will connect Knapford to Callan by rail. This is when Lower Ttte, and Hultra stations will be built. And the railway will also purchase its first ever express engine, which was one of the first of its kind on Sodor, what is presently day a D16 named Molly. Molly will become the first ever express engine to run on this railway, and was painted into a bright yellow livery with red lining. And Molly will remain the railway's express engine for many years. In 1914, World War I begins, and a decent amount of events unfold during the war. In 1915, the sodor tramway company will go fully bankrupt and close down after the majority of Great Washington's residents will go off to fight in the war. With the tramway serving virtually nobody, the tramway will be forced to shut down along with the company. And the town will be fully abandoned by around 1916. Also in 1916, Ttte Harbor was opened as a means of relieving some of the workload from Knapford Harbor, which at this time was being absolutely bombarded by shipping at the time. By around 1917 or so, Glynn was the only remaining coffee pot engine on the KANUR. 1918 sees World War I come to a close. In December of that year, the KANUR merges with the Wellsworth and Sudbury Railway, and becomes one new railway, the Tidmouth, Wellsworth, and Brandon Light Railway. This rail would connect via a middle station at Crosby, and the rail will also repaint most of their engines into new liveries. The main livery being a teal livery with gold lining and red wheels and frames. In 1919, a 440 tender engine known as Edward was purchased to help with express work, and was just repainted into this new livery. And the Tidmouth, Wellsworth, and Brandon Light Railway's express service will now start at Callan, travel down to Knapford, and go down all the way to the tip of the peninsula at Brenham. And Molly and Edward were juggled to express back and forth between them at this time, with Molly being the mostly primary engine at this time. In 1921, a new engine was purchased by the railway. This engine was supposed to be the main new express engine, but it turned out to be a dud as it had several steaming issues. And if you know your Sudbury history, you know this engine happened to be Henry. Henry was traveling express when he arrived, but ultimately failed with the express, but he did succeed with local trains, so he was designated to those. But Henry's steaming issues would be a thorn in his side for a number of years. But regardless of this, the railway kept him on. The Tidmouth, Wellsworth, and Brandon Light Railway would come to an end in 1923. If you know your railway history in the UK in particular, you know that in this year this when grouping of Britain's railways will go into effect. At this time, there were a total of just 2 standard gauge railways on Sodor. The Tidmouth, Wellsworth, and Brandon Light Railway, and the Sodor and Mainland Railway. And these two will merge into one giant railway, the North Western Railway. And that railway will become one of the big 5 railways of the United Kingdom. But that is a story for another day. Oh boy, that was a big one. We have now covered the history of 5 different railways in one video. What a joyride. This means we have now covered every standard gauge railway that preceded the NWR. Before this series ends, I just want to thank you all for the support on this series. This is now one of the most popular series on my channel. I always appreciate the support. I also want to give a brief update on the channel's future for the next few months. From around the 22nd of April to around the 7th of May, I will be in absolute testing hell. I'm about to graduate high school in this case, so the uploads for those months, or in this case just being 3 uploads, will be compilation videos of my 3 series. These being Porter vs. Low Ramblings, Porter vs. Workbench, and Northwestern Predecessors. I know it's not ideal, and I would love to try to put full videos out during that time, but I know I won't have any time as I try to graduate high school, you know? So those uploads during those weeks will be compilations, but we'll hopefully be back to regular uploads right after that. But until those compilation videos go up, the next few uploads from here will range from Porter vs. Workbench to Porter vs. Low Ramblings, maybe even some essay videos, who knows. And with this episode, Northwestern Predecessors has now come to a close. But there's no need to worry, as I already have a sequel series in the works. This being Railways of the Porterverse. In this series, we'll cover the other railways that came after and during the Northwestern Railway's tenure. So stuff like the Big City Railroad, the narrow gauge railways, the Northwestern Railway itself, even the Ulfstead Castle Railway. There's a lot we gotta cover in that. Super excited for that series. There's no concrete release for this first episode at the moment, but I do want to get it out as soon as possible. So look out for that. Thank you all very much for watching this episode of Northwestern Predecessors, and I'll see you all in the next one.